President Trump makes a stop in New Hampshire. The Moscow label is something that they're trying to make catch on. And what would the impact of a recession be on the 2020 election, particularly for the president?
Here to drop some knowledge, as he always does, is the Hill's editor-in-chief, Bob Cusack, with the debrief. Great to see you, sir.
Good morning.
So we have some numbers coming out this week. Dow dropped 800 points, inverted yield curve. You've got Brexit, you've got trade war, you've got all these other things overhanging the economy. Not to mention this has just been a very long expansion.
Yeah, it has.
So we're kind of due for a downturn. What is your read on what the political impact of that would be?
Well, the White House has to be worried because there have been economists who have been predicting a recession for months, and it hasn't happened. And eventually, like Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says, well, eventually they'll be right because there will be a recession at some point. But this seems more real here. They're nowhere on China. There's no way they're going to get a deal on China anytime soon. Certainly not this year. They're more focused on the new NAFTA, USMCA, which may or may not pass Congress. And it's going to be interesting because Democrats, are they going to give Trump a win when he needs something on the economy? Trump must keep the economy or he's in big trouble, and he knows that.
Yeah, the president seems to acknowledge that. He talked about the China situation yesterday. Let's take a listen.
I never said China was going to be easy, but it's not tough, and they want to make a deal. We just spoke to them yesterday. I don't think we're ready to make a deal. We're taking in billions of dollars in tariffs, and again, China's devaluing their currency. They're pouring out money. The prices haven't gone up, so that means we're taking in billions of dollars. We're not paying for it.
Sound economic advice there from the president. But, no, I mean, Bob, broadly here, whenever we're talking about the tariffs, I mean, it all comes down to the Midwest. At present time, we have not yet seen a widespread revolt amongst the Midwestern farmers about these tariffs. We have the chairman of the Iowa GOP on later. I mean, this is something that we continue to hear from a lot of Republican leaders in the state.
They're sticking with them.
Yeah, I mean, these are Trump fans. They're getting frustrated, and Republican senators are like, we need a deal soon. So will it stick for another year if they don't have a deal and farmers are still hurting? And listen, if I were Jay Powell, the Fed chief, Chairman, I'd be very nervous. I mean, he could be fired, even though he says he can't be fired.
That's true. I mean, remember in our interview with the president, he told us that he has the authority to fire Jay Powell. He made it quite clear.
I mean, but for what it's worth, I'm not so sure that the politics on this are as straightforward as they normally are. I mean, that is always the standard rule. Like, bad economy is bad for the incoming president. Right. This president, the standard rules have never applied to him. He really thrives on chaos. He did better in the places in America where white America essentially was struggling the most. I mean, that's the base of his support. You'll see him turn around, blame the Fed chair, blame the Democrats, blame whoever. And when times are uncertain, there are a lot of people who look to this sort of strongman leader that he has portrayed himself to be.
And he's very good at talking up the economy. I don't think that was something that Barack Obama was great at. So even if it does dip, he'll say, hey, it's pretty good. And it could be so much worse.
With those radical socialist leftists, you don't want AOC
and you're
in
seeing
charge.
That from
I think he would blame Congress.
Everybody.
That's what I think he would do. He'd be like, look, Congress is far more unpopular than he is. He'd be like, these are the people who are holding me up, Nancy and Chuck.
These socialists are holding me up.
That's what I think. But Bob, let's also talk about this growing Democratic effort to brand Mitch McConnell Moscow Mitch. I mean, what is the genesis of the label? I think it has something to do with election security. Is it becoming like a fundraising, battle cry for what is it?
Well, it's something that was elevated this week because Nancy Pelosi did call him Moscow Mitch, and he went to the floor. He does not like this moniker
Well, that's why they're going so hard on it, because it bothers him. He's feeling so unflappable.
It does, and it does have to deal with he won't bring this legislation to the floor that passed the House. That was, it got some Republican support, but not a lot. But the other big thing, the Washington Post had a big front page story this week on aluminum mill company being helped by a vote in Congress, and McConnell helped it, and now there's a Russia investment in Kentucky. So that also is another thing that people are saying Moscow Mitch. So I think that this label, he likes the label Grim Reaper. He does not like the label.
He embraces that.
Yes.
I've lived in Kentucky. I was just back there a couple weeks ago. And for Kentuckians who have embraced this label, by the way, the Democratic Party of Kentucky broke like all the fundraising records, selling Moscow Mitch T-shirts and mugs and whatever. they are, they have really taken this to him because they see how much it bothers him. But for them, the aluminum plant thing is what they're really focused on, because Deripaska is involved in this.
Yes.
Mitch had to basically fight to remove the sanctions to be able to get this investment in. So that's what they've been focused on in particular.
And on that vote in the House, Republican leaders voted with Democrats. It was an overwhelming vote to make sure these sanctions stay in place, but they couldn't overturn it because of the Senate vote, and then McConnell got a number of his own, I think 11 Republicans to side with him. So this is, however, remember, Mitch McConnell, though, he's up for re-election. He is a great campaigner. He's not very popular back home, but he's never really been that popular, and he still wins sometimes convincingly.
He runs a great machine. Bob, we were just talking about this.
Democrats are also not that popular in
Right.
There you go.
We were just talking about this. It's interesting to see. I mean, McConnell has always been a right-wing bogeyman, but it really was, I think, post-Merrick Garland that he has become the complete flashpoint for the left. I mean, what was it? The first Democratic debate ever. He was mentioned more on that stage than Donald Trump was in terms of who you really are going to have to deal with if you become president. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
How has that kind of played out within the field right
It's an interesting dynamic because remember, the right didn't like him.
Yeah.
And then remember, and also after healthcare passed, Trump was suggesting he should step down as majority leader. And now it's just a matter of time. Trump hasn't endorsed him yet, but that's going to happen. Garland and blocking Garland, getting Gorsuch, getting Kavanaugh. Now the right loves him. So now that's why I think he's become more of a boogeyman on the left, because they know the right loves him. And McConnell reveled in that he was mentioned that much. That means he's doing something that's getting noticed.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, he got knocked off of his perch as the least popular senator among his own constituents. So that's an improvement. Of course, the two others that beat him out are no longer in the Senate. So hold comfort there. Right. President was in New Hampshire last night, playing as he does the role of political pundit. Let's take a listen.
But we'll see what happens. Whoever it is, I don't know that it matters, but whoever it is, different people. But I don't know. I think Sleepy Joe may be able to limp across the finish line.
I mean, the question with Trump is always, do we have any sense of who they want the nominee to be? Like, who would they like to run against?
Well, I do think they're less scared about Biden because he's had these gaffes, he's had shaky moments. There are questions about his age. And actually, Trump in his rally was referencing Amy Parn's story, about whether he should maybe pare back on the campaign trail and this debate with his own campaign. And David Axelrod tweeted about it, and he said, listen, you can't do that. You've got to either go for it, you can't basically play it safe and then become president.
I mean, look, he already has the lightest schedule by far of any of the candidates.
We haven't even really gotten started.
Back?
That's the case. And Warren, as he mentioned, she is back. She's making this comeback.
It's funny.
She's running. She's out there literally running on the trail.
In the last two interviews that we've done with him, he has always emphasized. He's like, I think I killed Elizabeth Warren too early. Right. And so he's like, because he did the whole Pocahontas DNA thing. She announced right around the New Year's time with January, and he's like, I think I killed her too early. So his strategy is to let her rise. And he's like, but he also can't really stand seeing her up at the top. So I think he's going to start mentioning her right alongside Joe Biden whenever he attacks them. One interesting thing I've seen, he doesn't seem to have a nickname for Bernie. I mean, he calls him Crazy Bernie, but he kind of respects him. There's like a strange bedfellows thing from 2016.
And he respects his crowd size.
Yeah,
that's true.
But a lot of Republicans wouldn't mind Warren getting this nomination because they don't think she can win the Midwest, and you can bring the socialism argument where you really can't with Biden. So, but she's hot right now, and she's very much, I think, in debates, she's very comfortable in her own skin, and she knows policy inside and out better than some of the other candidates. And Bernie's right there, but Bernie seems like he's had some good poll numbers recently, but can he actually take over Biden? Warren is starting to make her move.
It all depends on the Biden constituency.
Well,
it all depends. If the bottom drops out on Biden, a lot of that from the polling that we've seen, the second choice there is Bernie. It's not Elizabeth Warren. So in my mind, the way I look at this rise, we were talking about this earlier, is that because Kamala and Pete Buttigieg and Beto and all those people are starting to fade, those are all these like upper middle class white voters who are trending towards Elizabeth Warren. That doesn't mean she can necessarily win the nomination. I mean, South Carolina is such a key battleground state here.
Not to mention Nevada and California as well.
Exactly.
And you could easily see Warren winning Iowa.
Yes.
But you think about enthusiasm. Is there a lot of enthusiasm around Biden? There's a lot of support around Biden, but is there a lot of enthusiasm? There is around Bernie, and I think there is around Warren. The enthusiasm is an issue, I think, for Biden, and that's what Trump seizes on, because he knows that on his side, of course, there's a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I remember back in 2016 when everybody was making the statistical arguments, oh, Hillary's crowd sizes don't matter, it's not important, right? Look at what, obviously that analysis was a little bit off. There's a piece that is dropping on the Hill about Native Americans and the 2020 Dems. What's going on there?
It's a big Native American forum that's coming up, and there are some candidates who are showing up, like Elizabeth Warren, who had a Native American controversy.
I think that would be important for her.
And this is in Iowa, so it's convenient for the candidates. Not all candidates are showing up, though.
Is Biden coming?
Biden is not, and Harris is not. Bernie is. And so we contacted a number of the campaigns that aren't going. But this is a big deal. I mean, everyone talks about the African American vote, which is very, very important in the Democratic primary. Native Americans in certain states, like when you talk about the Senate, you talk about Colorado.
Absolutely.
You talk about North Carolina. You talk about Arizona. These are also presidential states. So they're going to have this big forum on it. And one of the issues that's going to come up, of course, is reparations. And what do you do for Native Americans if you're doing that for African Americans?
And I mean,
such a great
Elizabeth
question.
Warren needs their blessing. She will not survive. And even then, I don't think it's enough. I mean, the Cherokee Nation has already come out and condemned her. This is not a good position to be in. But no, you're right,
She's
Bob.
gotta
Which is
show
that
up.
in those, she has to show up.
Yeah.
I mean, the real question, I think, is the test of how she's going to answer. I played earlier in the show her response when Charlemagne the God confronted her about this. Like, when did you know? She had no answer.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean.
Yeah.
I think she faces a big problem at this forum because, and from what I can see, despite the fact that she knows she's going to get asked, she just does not have an answer for this.
Yeah, and you do have to show up in politics, certainly, and in life. And she is going to be challenged, and that's what leadership is all about. So we'll see.
Yeah.
When's the forum?
Next week, early next week.
There we go.
We'll keep our eye on it. Bob,
Thanks,
thank
Bob.
you.
Thank you.
And we'll have more Rising after this.